having a successful business at the cost of your health and body is not success.
Hello, and welcome aboard another episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. This is your captain speaking, Taylor Morgan. On today's episode, we have another special guest. His name is Luke DePron. Luke is a sought-after online weight loss coach for busy entrepreneurs and businessmen, as well as the host of a high-performance podcast and the founder of Live Great Lifestyle. Using his extensive training in exercise science, combined with strategies learned from a network of elite performers, including Navy SEALs, world champion fighters, best-selling authors, and more, he has helped transform the lives of everyday men to Olympic-level athletes. Today, he helps high-achieving entrepreneurs lose 25 or more pounds of body fat through his lean body method, so their physiques, energy, and confidence match the success they have in business and in life. Luke, welcome to the show.
Dude, pumped to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Sweet. So let's dive into it. I'm excited for this one because as we were talking before we hit record, it seems like we align so perfectly in everything we've got going on. I started as a fitness coach. I was a CrossFit coach for 5 years. And then I got into the more holistic side. And I'm imagining that's how you got started. So tell us a little bit about your journey into this.
Yeah, very similarly in that, I was going to school I was in college for business, and I'm sitting in my accounting class realizing I absolutely hate everything about it. And I thought about what am I like looking at on my free time, and I'm looking into nutrition, exercise. So long story made short, my junior year of college changed degrees to the kinesiology department, not really sure like how I'm going to do anything with this, but I just knew I had a passion for exercise physiology, nutrition, and I did want to make an impact with people. And that has led to a, 10-year career in this crazy industry, doing everything from personal training, one-on-one clients to performance work with athletes, corrective exercise with rehab in a rehab studio where I really got to cut my teeth working with some really interesting people, to what I do today, which is again, a much more well-rounded, again, to steal your word, holistic approach to lifestyle and physique transformation for, again, high performing men.
Yeah. So very similar. Making the switch from business school to kinesiology, that's a big switch. What school did you go to?
So I went to Illinois State University, which we actually did have a really good physiology lab, which was cool because, we're actually in the trenches, got people on the treadmills with the heart rate monitors, running them, doing actual lab stuff, which was cool. Not really applicable to what I'm doing now, but it was a pivotal moment to think that I could have just gone out of school with a business degree versus really shifting into something that led to a passion.
And I think in general, business degrees are bullshit because like in business, it's all about just like learning from experience. And like, if you want to know about business, go either start a business, fail, and then you'll learn all you need to know, or, intern for somebody, learn from people who are doing the thing that you want to do and not pay multiple thousands of dollars getting a business degree, which you could just learn by doing.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. If I were to, mentor myself in looking back, I would have done some things differently. It's funny. I'm trying to think of, all the clients I work with that, many are business owners. I'm really reflecting back and wondering how many actually had a business degree. I would say not many.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of leads into my next question is, how do you feel about your exercise science degree now? Like, are you happy you went down that route? Would you have done something differently?
Interestingly, I in a way I do regret. Now I met my fiance there, so I can't change it, obviously, for that reason. But when I stepped out of that, I think like many degrees, I technically didn't need that degree to do what I was doing. I became just a personal trainer at that point. And ultimately what really shifted gears for me was hurting my back, actually, and then ending up in a rehab studio where I actually did end up working for quite a few years. And I was working under doctors of chiropractic. I got to, again, coach some really high level people doing corrective exercise. And that level of mentorship, to be honest, was worth far more than a 4-year college degree. Now, would I have gotten that job without that degree? I think so. as it was built through relationships, my expertise that I'd kind of just assimilated at that point. So yeah, it's easy. What's the one quote where it's easy to connect the dots looking back?
Yep.
Probably would have said, hey, let's go do some work abroad somewhere, get a little bit more life under my belt. Obviously, I know you went into the service. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have done college.
Yeah. If you can get mentored by a solid chiropractor who knows their stuff, because there are a lot of, whack jobs out there, which
Sure.
unfortunately is how chiropractic gets the bad rap. But I have some chiropractic friends who are phenomenal. Like, they're
Yeah,
amazing.
this has physical therapy. Basically, I became the pretend physical therapist in a way, but soft tissue specialist. This was a well-rounded clinic where we're treating tissue, not just cracking.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I started school for kinesiology as well, but during that time, I got recruited to be the head coach of the biggest CrossFit gym in Saudi Arabia. So I was like,
Oh,
screw
cool.
this. I'm doing, like, that's what I want to do, and I just got called to
Yeah,
do it. I don't need school.
that's an easy
Um,
choice.
yeah, and in one of the classes, like, they were talking about the rice method, which was I forget the guy's name who coined it back in like the 70s, but it's rest, ice, compression, and elevation, as I'm sure
Hmm.
you're familiar with for
Sure.
injuries. And since then, the doctor who has coined that term has since came out and said, like, I was wrong about that. Like, you should not be icing your injuries. Icing is good for pain. So if it is excruciatingly painful, yes, ice it, that will numb it. But ice can, slow the recovery and the healing process. And so they were teaching to ice in my exercise science class, and I was like, there's a disconnect here, because there's like an outdate in the knowledge. And so that was the first thing that I noticed. I was like, well, I'm learning all this stuff on the outside on my own through books and podcasts. And if the stuff that they're teaching in school is outdated, not that
Sure.
every school or class is like this, but I was just like, well, I don't need to, I was going to say pay, but I was getting it for free because of the Marine Corps, but
Sure.
just went down that opposite route. So
Yeah. I mean, I think so I don't have kids, but I thought, man, if I had a kid who was coming up towards that age of 17, 18, where they're thinking about making these decisions. And again, unless you have I, I don't think most kids at 18, I know I sure didn't really know what I wanted to do, but if I did, it's like, hey, what's the path that can actually get me to where I want to go? And again, if it was, hey, I want to build a business, like, again, I'd be like, hey, Tom Bilyeu, can I come, intern for you for free for 6 months? And if I do a good job, you hire me, right? Like, that would
wow,
be a
that
easier
would be
path to try to go
regardless
to
of what
me.
you want to do. If you intern for Tom Bilyeu, like,
Right.
you're set.
Or again, in our space, right? Like, there's plenty of people that I think you could possibly shortcut the gap as far as getting where you really want to go, if you know what that is. But unfortunately, I think myself and most probably 17, 18-year-olds don't really know.
Yeah. I thought I knew what I wanted to do, be a Marine, but then I did that, figured out that wasn't it. And then just a lot of pivots, a lot of failures.
Hmm.
Every single, win that I've had has come from some failure.
Yeah.
I think you should always just seek out failure. Not that you should ever, try purposely to fail, but if you have the right mindset, you learn from those failures, and then you figure out how to improve it the next time, and then you
Yeah.
fail
Hey,
forward.
absolutely, man. Yeah. What's they're like, as long as the lesson is extracted, I mean, it's a win at that point, right? It's not really a failure. And this is, again, like you said, pivoting. I think of it as stumbling forward. I
Mhm.
mean, again, the fact of, I look at my career and where I'm at now, and, um, getting mentorship on from more of a different style of coaching to work on more like the psychology side came from going to a conference and meeting a woman who certifies people and trading her. And like, you just don't really know where it's going to go as long as you're, I think, consistently trying to move forward, again, hitting those obstacles and realizing like that's a challenge. We get to overcome it. We get to grow, and boom, onward we go.
Mhm. So what got you started in your own thing? Like, what made you want to go out on your own?
So I had personal trained on my own. And then again, I was working in this rehab studio. Some dynamics had changed in that office to where things that I valued the most, which was like the autonomy and control, as it was more of a startup, kind of started to change. And I have nothing but good things to say about this. I'm literally neighbors with one of the owners at this point in San Diego, and they're two of my best friends. I love these guys to death. So just the office dynamics changed to where my core value is freedom and autonomy. So doing my own thing always made more sense. And then shifting gears to kind of the way I coach now is I actually saw a lot of the pitfalls of in-person personal training, in that long-term success and like real like transformation wasn't happening there. And that's where the shift to more of the online and what I'm going to call like lifestyle coaching kind of took place, because you probably saw some of this in like the CrossFit class, where a lot of people come in and check the box, say they did the workout, but it's like, hey, is doing the workout the goal, or do you want the actual result? And with that, there needs to be a little bit more personal agency, and you need some space to create for people to where it's like, you have to step in and grow. I can help monitor, mentor, make adjustments. But if I got to be there to drag you through a workout, sorry, you're not going to have success.
You called it. And that's exactly why I started the Captain's Lifestyle program, is because I would have my athletes coming up to me asking, hey, coach, I've been coming into the gym for so and so long now. Why am I not seeing the results? And I would tell them, I was like, okay, well, how are you sleeping? What is your
Yep.
diet like? How are your stress levels when you're not at the gym? Their answers would always be the same. They're lucky if they get 6.5 hours. Their diet is pretty good. And as you know, anybody who says that,
Quote.
yeah, it's
quote pretty good.
not good. And then stress levels were through the roof from whether it was work or relationships. And it's like, well, there's your answer. You can't go to the gym expecting that 1 hour to offset the other 23.
Yeah.
And I would try to tell them these little tips and tricks to help their sleep in the 1 hour class, but either they didn't want to hear it because they just came to work out, or, it's not enough time. So I'm glad that you finally made that realization too. And I think that's where the fitness industry as a whole is moving, because you can't have one without the other. Like, you can't be a good athlete without good sleep. You can't have good sleep if you don't have good nutrition. Like, everything is tied together holistically. Yep. So you realize that. Well, let's what were some of the realizations that you had, like your personal training clients was that kind of the similar story?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, obviously there's the success stories, but when I saw the challenges, and I always use this one as a great example where it really this nailed it for me. This is many years ago. I remember a client came in and we're talking, and he says something to the effect of, he's like, well, this is easy for you because you're a fitness guy. And I thought about that for a minute, and I'm like, I'm going to call this guy Tom for this story. And I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, Tom, like, here you are, like, I'm training you. So clearly you are at least exposed to my philosophy of fitness. So I'm not saying we're doing the same workouts, but clearly it's going to be in the same vein of thinking about exercise. Same thing with nutrition. Again, you're being exposed to my philosophy and my tips and strategies, same things that I'm going to implement. Again, not the same diet plan, of course. And it's like, so we're kind of doing the same thing. It's like, you're a fitness guy, but he never took that identity on. And of course, this was someone that then later ended up putting the weight back on. That really kind of showed me, like, again, there was this gap of, there's a lack of growth. And again, like, personal agency that is not given. And so I really wanted to empower people to have, again, like, real transformation, because again, as a coach yourself, the impact of whether it, again, is losing the weight, getting fit, getting healthy, man, it is so, it impacts everything in life. So again, if you're the parent, like, you're going to have a better relationship with your kids, you're going to do better at work, you're going to have better relationships with your spouse. And so that, to me, is what lights me up. And realizing, again, the personal training model, while some would have success, it was kind of like level 2. It's like, I want to get you to the next one. And that does require a little bit more of, and to use your wording, a holistic approach, where we got to kind of pull a few more levers than just showing up and doing a couple workouts.
Yeah. And I think you'll agree with me when I say it all starts with your mindset.
Sure.
Like, if you go into the gym and you don't have that strong why, like, you don't know why you want to lose the weight or whatever, it might work. It will work if you have a good personal trainer, but then it's going to come right back. So that's the reason why I work with my clients. First thing is mindset. So what do you do to help out because coach specifically busy, overweight entrepreneurs whose mindset, unfortunately, this is very popular in the entrepreneurial world. You can sacrifice your own personal health if you're growing a quote unquote successful business. So how do you
Yep.
break that habit?
So yeah, so first we got to come to the recognition that having a successful business at the cost of your health and body is not success.
Right.
So like we have to quit hiding behind that. And once guys have that revelation, it's like, okay, then it does start with the big why. And so that's just a short exercise to take people through. And again, if we can actually connect the idea that, hey, you will perform better and do better in your business as an entrepreneur if you are healthy, if you do lose the weight, that actually can be a big motivator. And I think you likely will agree with this, that a lot of this is self-fulfilling, that once we get the ball rolling, we get some momentum, like, again, dude, you feel better, you sleep better, all these things are clicking. Why would you not continue to do this? So we just kind of got to get over that hump. So it does start with, again, we have to understand that sacrificing our health to build business is actually not a success. That there are ways to integrate habits and strategies that are actually not really going to take, yes, it takes time, but it's not really going to take away from your business, because you're going to show up more energetic. You're going to be more focused. You're going to be more productive. And if we can tether that to the success of the business, that helps people get going. For other people, we might need to actually tether to like, hey, what kind of dad do you want to be? Like, like if guys have kids, I always throw this at them. It's like, hey man, are you or another man going to walk your daughter down the aisle?
Powerful.
Yeah. And so we just have to find a link. And then ultimately, we also want to craft out kind of our, personal fitness identity. And so for a lot of the guys I work with, like, hey, are you going to be the fitpreneur? Like, do you want to be the fit and healthy leader, the face of your business, as obviously a lot of people now today are. And it's like, are you proud of the presentation of that? Are you representing it well? And so starting to help guys craft out that identity so they can start to make identity-based decisions really makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. So now let's get into some of those strategies, because
Sure.
I'm also a big fan, because so many entrepreneurs think they're so busy with their work that they don't have time for themselves, which is bullshit. We kind of already busted that. But if they still have that mindset kind of ingrained that they don't want to sacrifice whatever they're doing, what are some of the ways that you help your busy entrepreneurs incorporate these healthy habits into their daily lifestyle?
Yeah, so I'll start with this. There's kind of three big areas of focus, or three big boulders that I'm going to work with. We have what I'm going to call the build, fuel, and move phase. So building is obviously going to be the exercise portion. Fuel is going to be our nutrition side, and then move is going to be this movement phase where we can really create an easier way to create a caloric deficit or a caloric window. So for a lot of people, it's going to be, again, this kind of comes back to mindset, but we need to have a recognition of what it actually is going to take to get to the goal. And unfortunately, most people, and this is due to, I hate to say it, the shit that comes out from the fitness industry, particularly like online, I think most people have a misconstrued idea of how much it takes to improve their health and fitness. So
Everybody wants a six pack until they realize they have to work for it.
Well, right, but you also don't. So like that's true. But what's equally true is you do not have to do the Rock style workout to get what you probably want. Now, if you want to look
100%.
like the Rock, yeah, get your ass back in the gym right now, because you're gonna have to work out all day. So I think most people have oversold what it's actually going to take to get the results that they probably want, which is like, hey, do you want to again lose 25, 30 pounds? Do you want to feel better, sleep better? These are things that that anybody can really do. So like basic stuff, is it's like, I don't have time to go to the gym. Cool, let's do a home gym. And I always use me as an example, because I think most people think, oh, the fitness guy probably lives, eats, and breathes the gym. The reality is, like, I just got a gym membership for the first time about 2 months ago, for the first time in I think 5 years. I've done a home gym for the last 5 years. So, in the time that it could take to go to the gym and come back, you may have been able to actually do your workout. This could actually be done at the office. So we don't even need to go to a physical gym. We might have to acquire some tools.
Yeah.
Again,
Let's stick on that for a little bit, because I've recorded a whole podcast on this, and I'm a huge fan, because especially during the pandemic, people gave the excuse, I don't have time, the gyms are shut down, whatever. What are some of your either best pieces of equipment, like most effective, simple at-home workouts? What can people do if they are in that mindset of I don't have time?
Yeah, real quick on the pandemic, what I found really interesting with that is during the same circumstances, there were people who I mean, obviously the pandemic was horrible. But for certain individuals, it's like that created the space for certain people to have made radical improvements in their health, because in their mind, hey, now I control more of the environment. I'm at home. I, you know, I can work out at home, whatever. And then there's somebody else in the exact same situation, put on 30 pounds.
Yep.
And I've always found that fascinating, because at the end of the day, life's going to happen, and it's really going to be about how we respond to it. So as far as equipment, I mean, to me, the basic stuff that I would tell people is we're going to just start with a good set of just adjustable dumbbells. I'm going to be a proponent of, like, we are going to use progressive overload. So we're going to need to systematically increase weight over time. Yes, obviously we can use some body weight exercises, but particularly with guys, if like they're going to get strong at some point to where, a body weight lunge isn't probably going to get you there. And we're going to want to start to increase and overload with some weight. So dumbbells are going to be like the bare minimum, and you could probably do almost everything with just that.
Mm-hmm.
You could start to expand out and say, like, hey, yeah, grab a pull-up bar, you get a barbell, and all of a sudden you have a few other additional things. Things like TRXs can be useful, but honestly, I probably only use about 2 exercises of it, not all the like crazy stuff that I see. We can strip it down to some really foundational pieces. So yeah, man, just dumbbells would be like, let's start there. I think people misunderstand how little can take them, in that I probably have with the majority of my clients, they probably do 9 to 12 different exercises. It's like, you don't have to do thousands of different exercises. We're going to focus just on a few foundational exercises. We're going to build strength on them over time, and you will see change.
Yeah. People are always focused on like the new thing, like whatever the new ab exercise is. It's like,
Yep.
don't worry about any of those headlines.
And this is the half the battle for me, is trying to walk people back from, again, what they think it actually takes. And this is, again, due to, I think, and I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but like really shitty marketing that I hate. Like, this is the battle that I'm having as a coach, that when you see, again, the next exercise, the next supplement, the next promise, the next 14-day challenge, the next 21-day fix, it's like, this is bullshit. And unfortunately, because entrepreneurs are like so good at just putting their head down and going, they'll sometimes fall victim to some of this stuff because they think they're going to like outwork it. And it's like, you really won't, because there's just some physiology at play.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say a lot of entrepreneurs will treat entrepreneurs and businessmen will treat their approach towards the health and fitness much like a product launch, when instead I'm like, man, this is the business plan. Like, this is the long haul thing. This is not just this little 21-day, like, we're just going to knock this thing out. It's like, not going to work. And the problem is, you can lose weight fast. You're going to lose muscle mass. You're going to have a ton of you're going to have metabolic adaptation that takes place, and you're going to rebound. But the problem is, no one shares the rebound.
Yeah.
They only share the, like, hey, I lost 20 pounds. They don't go share that, like, then they just put it back on. And neither do any companies that are selling a supplement and a crash diet plan. So it's like, you can do it quick, but you won't keep it off. And stopping people from falling down those rabbit holes is definitely a challenge.
It's the whole lifestyle, going back to mindset first. Like, yes, you can absolutely do all those things, but it's all going to come back if you don't create those lifestyle habits. So you talked about, we went on a little rabbit hole there. So let's get into the other two. What was it? The
fuel.
burn. Yeah.
So build fuel. So again, if we're speaking specifically about losing weight, it's like, we do have to create a calorie deficit. There's just no getting around that. And this is where, again, guys, unfortunately, will fall victim to, I don't want to call them scams, but like looking at a specific diet and thinking this is the fix, this one's going to work, and just not understanding the underlying mechanism. So again, I don't have anything against keto. I've done keto. I know people that love keto, but making sure that we understand that the reason keto works is actually going to be a calorie deficit if we lost weight. And so I see a lot of guys struggle with looking at diets, specific diets, whether it's vegan, paleo, carnivore, keto, whatever, as if it's doing something magical. And when it doesn't work, they think, oh man, this diet didn't work for me. And it's like, no, that diet works. You didn't work the diet. And then we jump to the next one, and then the next one. And rather than actually just understanding the actual mechanism of weight loss. And once we have that understanding, then it's going to be about, how do we actually integrate meals that we like instead of going on something that is not sustainable. And then ultimately, hey, what do we need to outsource? Maybe there is going to be a season of your business or life where, hey, let's outsource some meals. Can't be every single one, because again, we've given away all our personal agency, and we probably then, when we go to a restaurant, when our meal's no longer there, we'll probably make a bullshit choice. But hey, maybe 4 days out of the week when you're really grinding, like, yeah, outsource your meals. Boom, easy.
Yeah. I would say for a busy entrepreneur, businessman out there, that is a super simple hack. Like, yes, you should learn about nutrition, because if you do go out to a restaurant, you should be able to make an informed choice based on your
Yep.
goals. But if you can find a healthy, sustainable meal prep company in your area that can just deliver that for you, because one of the big complaints I hear is, I don't have time to cook healthy.
Sure.
First off, that's bullshit. You make time for your priorities. So
Yep.
if being healthy is your priority, you have the time. Or you might not want to, or you might not be a good cook, and so you want it to taste better. That is super powerful. What?
Yeah, and this is where I'm hopping real quick here on this.
Yeah.
This is where I see guys, it's almost as if we're going to build in an excuse to quit by making it so time consuming and so overcomplicated. Like, yeah, you're right. You probably can't make a 12 vegetable frittata every morning that you have to cook on the stove and then you bring it into the oven. Like, that's probably not realistic. Maybe you can do a bulk egg bake, on a Sunday that lasts you through the week. There's always going to be strategies and tactics depending on your situation. And you have to step in again with that mindset and belief that, like, okay, there's a way to navigate this, to the point of, if you really don't have any time, great, because you're just earning, boom, let's outsource it. Easy as that.
So sometimes I post like on my Instagram story, these things called dude meals that I stole from Ryan Fisher.
Yeah.
They're basically, dude meals are like super simple, super easy, super nutritious meals that dudes who are stereotypically, they don't, spend the time to prep their own food and, really get into it. It's just quick, easy, simple, nutritious. Something that I use is like grass-fed ground beef, stir that up with some pasture-raised eggs and like an avocado. Takes no more than 10 minutes, extremely nutrient dense and super simple. So do you have anything like that, like for people who do say they don't have time?
Yeah. So for me, this is this applies both to meals and to restaurants. And I have recipes that I give clients, but I even tell them, it's like, I actually don't personally use any of these recipes in the sense of how they are laid out as a recipe, because I'm not going to measure. Again, yes, you probably want to measure your olive oil. Like, don't do a quick pour of olive oil where you put in 350 calories of olive oil. Like, that might be worth pouring into the cap. But it's like, I'm not going to actually personally measure out a cup of spinach. Like, it's going to be a handful. And ultimately, we have to find your personal go-to meals and go-to restaurants. And these are, again, going to be recipes or meals, whatever you want to call it, that fit your needs and that are easy to make, that you eat most days, and they're going to make up the bulk of what you eat. So again, if we were to say me specifically, it's like, yeah, I'm having eggs most days. Like, I like it. I enjoy it. And ultimately, that's what we have to find. There can be go-to restaurants in your area as well. Like, I had a client who he always talked about, when his secretary would book his flight, she booked his hotel wherever he was going to next to the closest Whole Foods. Like, boom, something as simple as that. He'd get in, hit Whole Foods, hit the hot bar, knows how to portion control out a good meal, and away he goes.
Easy.
Versus someone else who maybe doesn't put a little bit of preparation in, is just, well, I had to eat something, and now it's, fried chicken, fries, and a shake.
Yeah.
Go-to meals.
Do you talk about time restricted eating at all, or intermittent fasting? Because in those situations, when I tell my clients, like, remember, not eating is always an option, and it sometimes is probably the better option.
Yeah. So, and again, this is one that I personally have been a intermittent faster long before it was really popular, out of necessity. When I, again, worked in this rehab studio, I just didn't get a lunch break. And I figured out that, hey, if I just push till 3 and work from 7 to 3 with clients back to back, actually wasn't as hungry than if I were to take a little bit of a break. Now that next meal would of course be massive. So yeah, travel days, I actually think, can be a great time to start to lean into the fact that you are going to have to be a little bit comfortable with being hungry if you're going to lose some weight.
Yep.
All right. Like there's tricks to make us feel more full, eating high protein, again, obviously eating lots of like filling vegetables, but at the end of the day, we're in a deficit. Like you're going to have to deal with a little bit of hunger. So a travel day is a perfect day to approach it with some intermittent fasting. I do think it's important to point out to people that, again, intermittent fasting, if it's causing weight loss, is going to be because of a overall calorie deficit at the end of the day. When I've intermittent fast, am doing it from a place that I do not want to lose weight, and I don't lose weight. Well, what that means is these meals, when I would break that fast, were ungodly big, and I'm just backloading all those calories. So,
Yep.
I'm gonna lean in towards more personal preference there. You wake up, are you hungry? Cool. Then you should probably eat if you're more of a morning person. I've had other people where they wake up and they're like, man, I'm not hungry at all. And it's like, great, don't eat. Like if your goal is to lose weight, let's not throw in 800 calories when you weren't even hungry at all.
Yeah. And that's one of the big reasons why I believe every single human, let alone high performing entrepreneur and businessman, should have a coach, a one-on-one coach that they can work with, because like you mentioned, like every diet and new exercise out there can work, but it's all about how it fits into your lifestyle. So if you heard intermittent fasting is the best thing since sliced bread, and you try that and you absolutely hate it, but
Yeah.
you've heard that it's the best possible thing for you, like have a coach to work with you one-on-one and say, okay, do you like doing that? Then do it. Maybe here's a better way that you can try. I personally intermittent fast almost every single day, 16 hours. I find that I'm much more productive during that time. And on travel days, I don't eat at all. So a 24-hour fast. Now let's dive into, do you talk to your clients at all? Because if you're coaching people who are specifically wanting to lose a lot of body fat, they clearly do not have an optimized diet. And without an optimized diet, your brain cannot be functioning at its peak capacity. So do you talk about how the food that they consume is not only good for weight loss, but also cognitive performance and helping them run their business?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny is obviously most people come to me they do have a physique goal. Like that's the entry point of what they're looking for support in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, like obviously I'm excited for somebody to lose 20, 30, whatever, how much weight they lose. That's great. That's exciting. But what really lights me up and like what gives me my passion is when I see how somebody feels.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, cognitively, emotionally, from improving their health and fitness. So yeah, that's a huge piece as far as like, again, how is your business going to run if you're actually like clicking on all cylinders? And most people, unfortunately, if you haven't tinkered with your nutrition, you haven't optimized it, you haven't got your weight in check, you don't realize like, man, you're running a few cylinders short. And you don't realize, like, people don't realize how crummy they feel until they start to feel better. And I do think while the physique is what gets the ball rolling, it's feeling better that's going to pull them through in the long haul. Like there's a reason people continue to do this stuff. I always joke, there's a reason that anybody that that takes up like and gets into nutrition and exercise, they start posting on social media about it. And like they're like obnoxious, like CrossFit, right? You guys were the worst about it, right? But it's for good reason, because you feel incredible.
And you share things that work for you. You want people to feel the same way.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a big part of it is obviously like, hey, how are you going to actually perform when like everything's clicking? Because at the end of the day, this is the vehicle that's taking us through this experience of life. And if right now your experience and focus is on growing your business, if you're doing it with an unoptimized vehicle, even if you're crushing it, it's like, man, where would you be if it was really clicking?
How much more potential do you have? Like,
yeah,
what's missing?
Yep.
You mentioned some people don't know that they're not feeling optimal. And I find this to be true as well. I ask people all the time, like, how are you feeling? Like, are you healthy, happy, and productive? They're like, oh, yeah. I was like, okay, well, how do you know? Like, if you've just lived your whole life eating fast food, sleeping 6.5 hours, and, think that that's your best, you don't know any better, because you've just lived your whole life that way. But I can promise you, if you get an extra hour of sleep, if you change your diet, you're starting to eat for fuel as opposed to just for comfort and pleasure, you are going to feel significantly better. So
Absolutely.
how do you break that mindset if a client comes to you, or a potential client, that they think they're dialed in, but that they have so much more in them?
Yeah, I would say because most guys are showing up again with that physique challenge where it's like, hey, we have kind of proof positive that like you're carrying around a little extra luggage here, my friend.
Right.
And so at this point, we already have like an outward expression of what's happening from the internal. But I guess if that wasn't the case, obviously I think sleep is a big one. Again, like when do you fatigue during the day? Like, do you have the energy to go like play with your kids after work? Do you have the energy to do extracurriculars? Like, is a hike? Does that sound out of the question? Because I think you mentioned expanding the potential, and there is much more in our tank, I think, for all of us. But I do get the visual, I get the visual feedback is I would say the big one.
Yeah, that would make it much easier. Yo, Taylor here. So I'm sure you've heard me harp on sleep and basically every single podcast and video that I put out because it truly is that important. And I'm excited to announce that I've created something very simple and very tactical that you guys can use to start improving your sleep immediately. In fact, it is the fastest way to improve the quality of your sleep and therefore the quality of your life with amazing results after just one single night of implementation. Seriously. This is the same nightly ritual that I personally use, and it's the same strategy that I teach all of my high-performing clients in the Captain's Lifestyle program. It's the 4-3-2-1-30 method, and I'm giving it away to you guys for free. All you have to do is follow the link in my Instagram bio or in the show notes of this podcast, and I'll send it over so you can start sleeping better tonight. But please do not sleep on this offer. It's literally free, so no excuses. Go do it. And sweet dreams. So now let's dive into what are some of your recommended brain foods. So not necessarily for weight loss, although what's good for your brain is going to be good for weight loss. So what are some of the best foods that you recommend people eat to optimize their cognitive performance?
I think so. Obviously, like the omegas, like getting that figured out, which to me starts with actually a reduction. It's really easy to jump right towards supplementation. And by the way, not a dietitian, not a doctor, so nothing I'm saying here is to be prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people are trying to, and again, I see this in the entrepreneurial crowd where it's like, hey, we're looking for like the hacks and the tools. And it's not always about addition. It can be about subtraction. So again, removing a lot of the inflammatory vegetable oils is probably going to be, as pivotal as, trying to add in some omegas. And obviously, like I think hydration is extremely important. I think there's a vast amount of us that are just walking around dehydrated. And then really, I think it's about removing a lot of like the big common stuff. Like if you're just loaded up on sugar, it's like there's nothing wrong with sugar, but if it's like making a massive portion of your diet, you're probably going to have some challenges. So, as far as like, my running down nootropics with people, I'm not personally doing that. I think caffeine's one that we need to like take a step back from and look at and evaluate, oh, I sleep great. And it's like, well, do you? Because you're using like a pot of coffee to get through the day. So I'm not going to get into the extremes really on any of that. It's more pulling people back to center, I think.
Yeah. And as an affiliate for a cod liver oil brand of omega-3s, I absolutely support that. Like you should not be supplementing anything until you eliminate all the crap from your diet. So if you think that you're just going to take this fish oil pill that's going to put a Band-Aid on your inflammation, that's not how it works. Like,
and
take the bad stuff out.
I personally do take fish oil as well, and I use it a little bit more strategically than like daily dosing, meaning like if I know I'm having a bunch of chips at a Mexican restaurant, I'm going to take some fish oil knowing that my omega-6s just came up. But I think most people, the way I think of this is like you can't clear the smoke out without putting out the fire first. So, a big reduction in I think omega-6s probably makes sense.
Yeah. And then once you add those high quality omega-3s, it's like brain octane fuel. Like it's just crazy. Healthy fats and the reduction of bad damaged fats is one of the best things you can do.
Yep. And it's so prevalent in like the average diet where like, this is where I think it gets challenging for people too, is
they're in almost everything.
Yeah. And rancid oils, like this happened like probably this is like 8 years ago, but I remember the thing came out where even olive oil like the mob from Italy had gotten involved, and they were, taking rancid like sunflower oil, deodorizing it and then adding it back in. It's like, even making healthy choices was becoming hard because you have bad actors in that sense. So, it even goes that deep.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've listened to a few podcasts that rabbit hole on the whole olive oil thing. Even like Napa Valley 5-star restaurants are cutting their olive oil half and half with something else. It's crazy. So yeah, watch out for that. And that's another reason why you should learn to make your own food, because then none of that even becomes an issue. So, all right,
true.
Took a deep rabbit hole on fuel. So we covered build, we covered fuel. Now let's get into movement.
Yeah. So movement is actually, believe it or not, this is one of the challenging ones for a lot of the guys that I work with. Again, it starts the mindset. It starts with recognition and the idea you have to come to terms with as a human animal. There is a massive incongruency with your body's expectation of what you are doing with your body if you spend all day at the desk. And so, if we want to put the 10,000 step rule, if we just want to throw a number like that may work, right? But the reality is if you're a guy who it's like, man, I'm stuck at the desk for 8 to 10 hours, it's again, like that's a massive incongruency. And from, again, a weight loss standpoint, there's a big gap there. But beyond just the weight, we can talk to fascia and how it's going to impact your actual workouts. I mean, this is something when I worked in the rehab studio, I saw all the time.
Next
tight hip flexor, forward head, you look terrible. You're starting to get headaches. Your hip flexors are tight. Your ass doesn't engage. Now your workouts are inefficient. And there's a whole, I mean, I could write a book on that whole thing.
Well, Kelly Starrett already did.
Yeah, Deskbound. There you go. Yeah, supple effort. Yeah. Oh, Deskbound. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. Both of them are fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, I got one of them right here. So yeah, we do have to address that side, and we do have to get moving. And again, this doesn't mean, and this is where, it doesn't mean you have to go do cardio. You don't have to get on the treadmill. Yes, that's an option. And there's going to be nothing wrong with, if you want to, plod along on the treadmill, great. That gets your movement. I would just encourage people to try to find an avenue that is enjoyable, doesn't feel like exercise to you. You don't even identify it as exercise. So this comes in the form of play and fun. Again, go for a hike, ride a bike. I live in San Diego, California. It boggles my mind that I see people walking around on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And it's like, go anywhere, go in your neighborhood. There's so much fun stuff to do.
They should be outlawed in Southern California. Like, get outside, people.
I'm a Midwesterner. So when I first moved here, I was so shocked because I'm like, it's January, guys. Like, you could be outside. And I'm watching people on a treadmill. And again, there could be, extreme tactics that, like, if you're committed to making this change, maybe you're a guy who it's like, you got to drop the $3,500 and you're going to have the 1 foot by, or 2 feet by 2 feet cubed treadmill that only goes 2 miles per hour. You can't run on it. And it just kind of plods along. But the caloric difference in something like that, it's going to be 600 to 800 calories in a day. And again, if you're not trying to lose weight, that still just gives you a 600 to 800 calorie window of, I don't want to call it fun foods, but it sure as hell is going to make this quote unquote lifestyle easier. If you do have a meeting where a client dinner and you're going to maybe have a couple cocktails to close the deal. Right. Yeah. And so, we do have to increase the overall movement for sure.
Yeah. And people think that living this healthy lifestyle is so difficult, but there's so many little hacks that you like basically wouldn't even notice, like that standing, the treadmill workstation. Yeah. That's something so simple. Yes, it's expensive, but how much are you willing to spend on your health and happiness? Like, it's totally, don't worry about the money, worry about the value that you're going to get from that and how you're going to feel once you start to lose all that weight. So what are some of those other desk bound hacks that you tell people, like if they are stuck behind a desk for the majority of the day, what can they do?
So if we're first off, stand up desk. Again, very little money. I'm at one, I'm actually seated right now. And we don't want to stand all day either. Talk to somebody who works at a grocery store, their feet and their back are killing them. So just a mantra that you want to adopt is the next position is the best position. We're just going to constantly shift. Actually, like right now I have one leg fully extended. I'm actually sitting on the back. I'm sitting on the back of the chair. So like one hip flexor is actually being lengthened at this point. So if you have the opportunity and, obviously if you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur, you're running the show, do some hip flexor stretching throughout the day. If you work for somebody, guess what? Be the weird person at the office. Drop down and do some hip mobility stuff. And then ultimately, how do we mix in work, man? I've worked with some people that are really like challenged with their time and like they get it done. I've had people who it's like when they get into the office, they would go up the stairs, down the stairs, and back up the stairs every time they came in or out of the building. So it's like when they would leave for work, oh, forgot something, and they go back up. And it's like, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. And again, if you're determined to get to the result, you're going to make that happen. Little, simple ones of evaluate your work day. What are the activities that are going to demand you to actually be at the desk? So for me, the ability of my brain to do math or anything with numbers and stand, it's not possible. I'm not smart enough. I got to sit down for math, right? Even like the calendar. But if I'm on a call, and oftentimes even podcasts like this, I'm going to be standing. So like, hey, could your phone calls, could you take those? Could you pace in the office? Again, you may look silly, but you're going to have to do things differently if this is your life. One I've recently, as I told you, I joined a gym recently, and this gym's very busy. So I'm not really able to do what I would call efficient workouts where I'm even supersetting or circuit training anything. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing like straight sets, which is kind of fun. I'm lifting harder and heavier and a little bit more like bodybuilder-esque. Yep. And it's just it's a goofy little fun time to be doing it. Because if you leave your, piece of gym, it's going to be taken by somebody. But I'm still getting probably 2,000 steps in my workout, but I just look like a trapped prisoner and I'm pacing around while everybody else is just doing a set and then sitting down
on their phone.
Yeah. And again, that's going to add up at the end of the day. I won't dork out too much, but neat non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the movement that's done, just little fidgeting, it adds up. I mean, it can be, there's studies that show there can be a 2,000 calorie difference between like 180 pound man versus another 180 pound man without doing formal exercise.
Yeah.
It's like, that's massive. That's the difference of you, again, having this lifestyle feel easy because you're not sweating every single morsel of food that you eat.
Yeah. So now let's talk about sleep, because I'm honestly pretty shocked that we've made it this far into the podcast and I've only very briefly mentioned sleep. And I saw you made an Instagram post today about the leptin and ghrelin imbalance that comes from sleep loss. So aside from that, although that's very important in weight loss, it makes it extremely more difficult to lose the weight if you're sleep deprived, which is anything less than 7 hours. Let's talk about how important sleep is.
Yeah. I think obviously there is the hormonal side, of course. But then beyond that, I think that the decision fatigue that comes with sleep is really impactful. And again, if we're talking specifically, say, weight loss, like your ability to make a good nutritional choice when you are sleep deprived and stressed, like good luck.
Yeah.
So yes, there's the hormonal stuff, whereas like there's plenty of studies that show like you're going to choose a higher carbohydrate, higher fat, higher calorie food when you are sleep deprived. That's a tough one as well with a lot of the people that I work with. And I do think maybe recognizing that there are going to be some seasons within your life that sleep maybe does get cut a little bit, right? Like I've had clients where it's like, we're waiting on the FDA, like, well, or we got to submit this to the FDA. And it's like sleep and stress are real. So obviously I would be happy to hear what you have to say on this, because I think you're probably a little more well-read on this than I am. But, some simple things that I use with clients, it's like, hey, let's get blackout curtains. Like, let's actually make sure that we have the environment set for sleep. Myself, I have a noisemaker. I would travel with that. That's going to help. And then I am big on morning sun gazing. So if you have the opportunity, get outside. And again, I think almost all of us do. It's like, if you're going to have coffee, go out, have it outside, 2 to 10 minutes. It's going to trigger melatonin 16 hours later and prime you for sleep. And this is all comes from a neuroscientist that I follow. And little things like that, to where I think cleaning up the sleep environment is probably as crucial for a lot of these guys, because if you are only going to get like 6 hours of sleep, man, you better be getting a good 6.
Yeah, quality.
Not
and then just
I think
quantity.
The final piece for me would be evaluate caffeine. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with where they're like, oh,
I'm fine.
I have lots of energy. And I'm like, yeah, but you're running like 300 milligrams of caffeine a day. Let's pull that out and see how you actually do, how you actually feel. One final thing. So depending on the workout program, which most guys, 3 to 5 workouts per week can get them there. So if we have the bandwidth to adjust our workouts, meaning, like if you're grinding on a work project and like you're not going to be able to, you're going to be like very little sleep, like punt on the workout the next day, take the extra sleep, pending you have the time to then hit your guaranteed minimum standard that we have set for the week. So hopefully if we have a little flexibility in our plan, man, there may be a day where like, if you didn't get as much sleep, maybe we don't train that next day, but we'll still hit our quota.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. All those are fantastic for sleep. And I mean, we could take a long rabbit hole on sleep because that's something that I'm very big on. I think sleep is the foundation of everything else you want in life. If you don't have good quality sleep, nothing else in your life can be optimized. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
If you want to build muscle, you have to
Yeah.
sleep. That's when testosterone and HGH are released. If you want to lose fat, we mentioned the leptin ghrelin imbalance. Like everything boils down to the quality of your sleep.
Just look at like any parent with a newborn and like, I mean, what do they tell you? I mean, like you talk to any, I have a bunch of friends right now who we were just actually on a vacation and there was 3 little newborn or 1-year-olds. And it's like, what's the challenge that any parent describes? And it's like the effects of sleep deprivation. And you can see it on them. I mean, there's times where it's like, man, they just look like they're getting beat down by life. And hey, that's part of probably raising a kid. Your kid needs food. You got to get up and feed your baby. That's going to happen and you'll take that sacrifice, but you can see the fatigue and the effects of that on parents. And if you don't have that child, like don't fall victim to that lifestyle because it's not a necessity, and recognize that having better sleep means being more energized, means being more focused, and you buy back time through that ability of focus and energy.
Yeah. Don't let your business become your newborn baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
don't let it keep you up every single night. Yes, there are some times, if you're a startup, there are going to be some times where, like you mentioned, there, situations arise to where you do have to sacrifice your sleep. But that should not be a consistent thing. That should not be the regular. If you think that you can even, quote unquote, get by on less than 7 hours of sleep, it's consistently, not just one night. It doesn't work. And if you think you're one of those, night owls, you can get by on less sleep, just try getting another hour. Just try it and see how much more potential you have. Like your brain just can light up. Creativity, memory, focus, concentration, all of that depends on the quality of your sleep.
I mean, you're a service guy, and it's like, what are the 2 things that they can do to absolutely stress you out, to challenge you to, and they're doing it from a good purpose, but there's gonna be like 2 big things. It's like cold is one, but the other one's gonna be sleep.
Yep.
It's like sleep deprive some guys and all of a sudden decision making goes to hell. And I mean, there's a reason that, obviously look at like the Navy SEALs and the training that they're going to go through. It's like sleep deprivation is a huge piece of that. And it's because it's going to be so impactful and both not just physically, but cognitively, to where we can start to see like poor decision making is going to happen. So there's a reason that, to build warriors, they're leveraging sleep deprivation. So if you think you're going to build an amazing company on no sleep, it's probably going to catch up to you in the long haul.
And even if you do, like there are some just amazing outlier performers out there who do have, quote unquote, successful companies, and they're sleeping like 5 hours a night. Okay. That's probably not you, but if you think it is, imagine how much more you have in you if you got that extra 2 hours of sleep. Like if you're performing this high on 5 hours, imagine what you could do with 7 hours or more, because there's just so many studies that prove that anything less than 6.5 hours minimum, and that's only like 3% of the population who has this mutation in the DEC2 gene.
I was going to say that's a really important piece to point out, is like there is some genetic mutations to that, where I'm like, I know I'm not that. If I don't get enough sleep, my body will shut me down. And if I push it long enough, bronchitis every time. So it's like, I'm paying the consequence. Somebody else, it's like, you might be paying the consequence through, again, you've put on some weight. And again, sleep's going to be a tool to help solve that challenge.
stress and inflammation play a huge role in weight gain. And what's one of the fastest ways to increase stress and increase inflammation? Reduce your sleep.
Yep.
Just
and this goes back to, again, like, one of the beautiful things that we have the capacity to do is to adapt and deal with stress. And I think far too many people, you asked the question of how do you get people to recognize they aren't performing well. And again, this is challenging because you will adapt and you will get used to it and it will feel like homeostasis.
Yeah.
But I would challenge people to test and tinker, and like go get a week where you really crush your sleep and see how you do. Do a week where you pull out caffeine. Let's see if you pull out caffeine. Does it wreck you? Like, does that wreck you to stop drinking like coffee? And if it does, like ding, 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 or take alcohol, right? Like, I've had clients where it's like, well, I don't really get hangovers. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. If you can drink that much and you don't get a hangover, man, there's some good adaptation that's taking place to help you with that. But that tells us obviously maybe we're having a little too much alcohol.
Yeah. Your body, the human body is extremely resilient. And just like you said, it will adapt to whatever you put it through. But just because it's adapting does not mean that that's you at your optimal state. You're not thriving if you need caffeine to function in the morning. If you wake up and you're feeling groggy and you need a cup of coffee to feel like you're functional, you are not even close to your peak performance. And just a simple test that anybody can do who thinks that you can get by on less sleep, go to thepowerofwinquiz.com. It's a sleep test formulated by Dr. Michael Bruce. He's a sleep doctor, and it tells you your chronotype. There's 4 different chronotypes, and there's a ton of valuable information on there, completely free. You could also, if you think you have that mutation in that gene, you could get a simple DNA test from like 23andMe, and they will tell you if that's in there. And I took the test. I do not have that. And I didn't need the test. I know, just like you said, by feeling, because I had plenty of sleep deprivation in the Marine Corps. And needless to say, my stress was through the roof there. So not, I
mean, I would have loved to have that. I mean, I'm envious of the Jockos of the world that, again, can really perform not well, but like extremely high on 4 hours of sleep. Again, I just know personally when I push that envelope, it's like, it's bronchitis. And I'm hacking up, feels like I have a razor blade full of phlegm in my chest and I have a fever and like my body will shut me down. But I think, that'd be great if you're one of those 3%ers, because wow, you're getting like 20 more hours a week of productivity. But I think for the rest of us, I think you just have to hedge on the idea that by sleeping better, you buy back time through productivity.
Boom. I think we should end it there. That was good. So tell people where they can find more about you and everything you've got going on with Live Great Lifestyle.
Easiest way is livegreatlifestyle.com. I have a free report there that kind of breaks down what we spoke about. Again, that build, fuel, move, and what you specifically want to do. So if you're somebody who's like trying to make a move in this, that will help you. livegreatlifestyle.com. That's on social as well, but website's the easiest place.
Perfect. And I mean, we barely scratched the surface with everything that we could have gone into. So we might have to do a part 2 later on down the road, but I do like to go live on Instagram with my guests so we can talk a little bit about some stuff that we missed then. So Luke, thank you so much for coming on the show and spreading some wisdom to my audience.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. And for anybody that's listening to this, I always just kind of end with this: the work that you think it's going to take to make the change, it's not as much as you think, but I promise you that the impact it's going to have is way beyond what you actually think. So don't build this huge obstacle that you think it is. All this can fit within whatever you got going on.
Boom. There we go.
Dude, cool, man.